Myst, Might, Mayhem. By Han Jung-Wiolia. Chapter 145. Repayment. Part 1. FSSST. Crack. Crunch. As cracks formed, his skin peeled off like a shell, and his muscles twisted and contorted. Upon witnessing his transformation, Chong Ryong clicked her tongue and remarked, "Why did you give him a clue to enlightenment?" Her desire was for the current heaven and earth society to crumble. However, thanks to the words Mok Jiangun had spoken, the Poison King Baek Saha had gained some sort of enlightenment. As a result, he was now able to break through his bottleneck. This also meant that he would become significantly stronger than he was now. "You did something unnecessary. TSK, TSK. Chong Ryong was not pleased with this. Yet, there was no response from Mok Jiangun. He was someone who had mastered telepathy and would always provide answers unless it was a special case. Why wasn't he responding now? Puzzled, she looked at Mok Jiangun's face. This guy? Mok Jiangun was intently staring at Baek Saha, who was undergoing a complete metamorphosis. It wasn't an expression of amazement or awe. He was observing as if studying him. Chong Ryong grew curious about what thoughts were going through his mind as he watched this. "What are you so deeply pondering?" And those thoughts held quite an unexpected aspect. Rather than focusing on the external process of Baek Saha's body being reconstructed, Mok Jiangun was keenly observing how the internal energy was transforming. Was it like this? After staring for a while, the corners of Mok Jiangun's lips twitched. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. For martial artists, a complete metamorphosis was a realm that existed only in dreams. It was a phenomenon where, upon breaking through a bottleneck, one's body would be reconstructed according to their increased cultivation level, resulting in a physique that could be considered the most ideal form for oneself. Huh. A gasp escaped from Baek Saha's mouth. Unlike a typical transformation, his clothes had almost entirely melted away, leaving him nearly naked, as he had become a complete poison master. The corners of Baek Saha's lips curled upward. The reason was simple. "I thought I might never be able to stand again." He stood up on his own 2 feet. How long had it been since he last experienced this sensation? He was so excited and moved that his heart pounded. Amidst his emotions, Mok Jiangun's voice reached his ears. "Congratulations." At this, Baek Saha turned his head to look at Mok Jiangun. "You. I was worried you might go back to drinking my blood, but instead, you even underwent a complete metamorphosis." Upon hearing Mok Jiangun's words, Baek Saha once again realized the significance of what had happened to him. He himself was aware that he had undergone a metamorphosis. However, hearing it from someone else felt quite different. "Kakik. That laughter doesn't suit you right now." "It doesn't suit me?" "Yes. At a glance, you appear to be in your late 40s? "No, mid-40s. You've rejuvenated." At Mok Jiangun's remark, a glint appeared in Baek Saha's eyes. "Rejuvenated?" Baek Saha unconsciously touched his face. The wrinkles that had felt dense on his face had nearly disappeared, and his skin was elastic. Oh my! There was no mirror in the meditation room to confirm in detail, but judging from the significantly reduced wrinkles on his hands, he truly felt as if he had become much younger. Come to think of it, the 2 individuals among the 5 kings who had received the title of 8 stars also appeared much younger than their actual age. I merely wished to walk again. Not only had he become a poison master, but he had also broken through his bottleneck. Now, he could genuinely say that he had reached the realm of the 8 stars. Unable to contain his emotions, Mok Jiangun spoke to him. "It seems you have achieved the results you desired. With this, the proposal I made earlier is practically nullified." "Proposal?" "Yes. You have already become a poison master, haven't you?" At Mok Jiangun's words, the corners of Baek Saha's mouth rose. "Kakik. Are you disappointed? I thought I might be able to hear that story from you more easily, but it appears you have obtained what you wanted through your own efforts." "Through my own efforts?" Do you think I am someone with such little shame? What do you mean by that? Bek Saha placed his hands behind his back, an old habit, and said, "If it weren't for you, young man, I would have either lost my life today or spent the rest of my days as a paraplegic, unable to even open my eyes." Thank you for saying it directly. At Mok Jayangan's response, one of Bek Saha's eyebrows arched upward. As expected, this fellow was saying things he didn't truly mean. He believed that thanks to him, Bek Saha had gained enlightenment and undergone a complete metamorphosis. Of course, those words weren't entirely wrong. You're quite an impudent fellow. If that's how you feel, I apologize. Don't say things you don't mean. I am well aware that I owe you a debt I could never repay in my lifetime. Then you should be able to grant my request. Of course. Bek Saha readily agreed. This young man had allowed him to walk on his own 2 feet again and had helped him reach the 8th level of the Wave Demon Poison Scripture, becoming a poison master, something he had longed for. He was no different from a benefactor to Bek Saha, so what couldn't he do for him? What are you curious about? First, promise me that you will answer unconditionally. A promise? I have already said with my own mouth that I will agree. Do you think I would go back on my word? I'm just saying this as a precaution. At Mok Jayangan's words, Bek Saha shook his head and said, I promise. I will answer any question you have. Thank you. What are you curious about? The ghost blade. At Mok Jayangan's unexpected words, Bek Saha momentarily furrowed his brows. He wondered what the young man wanted to ask that required a promise, but an unexpected question had emerged. Why are you asking about that? I can't tell you the reason, but let's just say I'm curious about who the ghost blade is. You're curious? Yes. Oh my. To cut to the chase, I heard you had crossed blades with the ghost blade. Is that true? It is. It was a well-known anecdote that everyone was aware of. However, while many had asked about this matter, Bek Saha had never given a proper answer. There were 2 reasons for this. The first was, it couldn't even be called a duel. Using his vast experience and the unique methods of his poison-based martial arts, he had merely endured for a short while. If the duel had been prolonged, he would have eventually been the one to lose. Bek Saha opened his mouth. Why are you curious about the ghost blade? I already told you. Are you saying you can't reveal the reason? Yes. At Mok Jayangan's answer, Bek Saha's eyes narrowed. He was conflicted. He was concerned about what intentions this child had for being curious about the ghost blade. If that intention stemmed from pure curiosity, it would be fine, but he worried if it might be driven by negative emotions. However, a promise was a promise. Since I said I would tell you, I will do so regardless of the reason. However, I also have a request for you. A request? Yes. It's not a difficult one. May I ask what it is? Do not reveal what you hear from me in this place. Do not reveal it? Yes. As a member of the Heaven and Earth Society, you will soon understand why I am saying this. I understand. After Mok Jayangan agreed, Bek Saha answered the question. First, regarding the question of whether I know who the ghost blade is, I cannot answer because I don't know either. What? What did he mean by that? Since they had fought directly, wouldn't he know the ghost blade's face? Puzzled, Mok Jayangan listened as Bek Saha continued. It is true that I crossed blades with the ghost blade, but his face was covered with a black mask, so there was no way to confirm his identity. His face was covered? Then what about the story of the ghost blade stopping the fight midway? That is true. So, are you saying that during the fight, the ghost blade suggested stopping, and you agreed? If that was all there was to it, it would be quite a waste of effort. Just as he was about to feel let down, Bek Saha shook his head and said, Does that make sense? Even if I was clearly losing against him, I am still a martial artist. I wouldn't accept such a proposal to save my life in the middle of a fight. Losing? Was he being overpowered? Bek Saha casually revealed the fact that he had been at a disadvantage. Considering he had never disclosed this until now, it seemed he had a strong sense of pride. Had he become more composed after gaining enlightenment? Although curious, that wasn't the main question. Then is that rumor also true? Rumor? The rumor that the Ghost Blade might be one of the society leader's personal guards. Ha! At Mok Jayanun's words, Bek Saha clicked his tongue. A considerable amount of time had passed since this incident, and it was slowly fading from many people's memories. Younger disciples might not even be aware of it, so where had he heard this story from? No. Since he was a disciple of the Shadow Clan, had he heard it from the Shadow Clan master? You know quite a bit. Is it true? I don't know. What? I also don't know whether he is one of the personal guards or not. What do you mean by that? At Mok Jayanun's question, Bek Saha recalled the events from 17 years ago. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. The Ghost Blade, who had displayed an astonishing divine technique that drained away all of his poison techniques, suddenly distanced himself and requested to stop the duel. What are you doing? Don't tell me you're going to show mercy in a life or death duel? On the contrary, it was a humiliation for a martial artist. They were engaged in a duel where their lives were at stake, yet even though he had the upper hand, what kind of nonsense was this? However, Poison King. Do you want to fight against an injured person? Injured? As Bek Saha asked in return, the Ghost Blade opened his upper garment and revealed his chest. Surprisingly, there was a palm-sized mark on his chest that appeared to be a scar. The affected area had turned black and sunken in. Moreover, judging from the black veins protruding from the wound, it looked as if, poison scar? It seemed as if he had been struck by a poisonous hand technique. Could it be that he had fought against a master from the Four Heavens Tang clan or the Gaiong clan? However, what was even more absurd was, he fought against me in this condition? Bek Saha found it utterly ridiculous. The Ghost Blade's condition was truly severe, to the point where it wouldn't be an exaggeration to call it a serious injury. Yet, he had displayed martial prowess that almost overwhelmed him, draining away all of his poison techniques, while in such a state. It was even more humiliating. His desire to settle things with the Ghost Blade had vanished. At this, Bek Saha asked, "Who did you fight against to end up like this? The Gaiong clan? The Sichuan Tang clan?" He didn't expect an answer when he asked. However, unexpected words escaped from the Ghost Blade's mouth. He Yang, the medicine immortal. What did he just say? He Yang, the medicine immortal, was known as one of the greatest pharmacists of the era, alongside wailing Dr. Ho Ta. He was a pharmacist, not a martial artist. What are you saying? As he asked in confusion, the Ghost Blade threw something to him. It was none other than, "This is? Now you should understand that we have no reason to fight anymore. How did you get this? Deliver that to him. Inform him of my injury and tell him I was interrupted." What do you mean by that? Just tell him that much. With those words, the Ghost Blade swiftly moved and disappeared from sight. Bek Saha tried to chase after him, but he vanished with such incredible lightness skill that it was hard to believe he was seriously injured, making it impossible to catch up to him. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. So you really don't know who he is? Yes. What I learned from fighting against him is that he was seriously injured by the individual known as the greatest pharmacist of the era, medicine immortal He Yang. That's all you know? At first, I couldn't believe it. No one had ever heard of medicine immortal He Yang cultivating martial arts until then. He was a pharmacist, after all. Well, he could have kept it hidden. Yes. That could be possible. However, one thing is certain, if medicine immortal He Yang truly inflicted serious injuries on the Ghost Blade, then his poison techniques far surpass mine. That made the duel even more humiliating for Bek Saha. It meant that an old pharmacist, who was renowned for his medical skills, had overwhelmed the Ghost Blade, one of the 8 stars, with superior poison. techniques compared to him, who had devoted his entire life to refining poison arts. I see. Now Mok Jayangan understood why Baek Saha had glossed over the matter and kept it hidden from everyone back then. Perhaps it was also a matter of pride as a master of poison techniques. Mok Jayangan asked him. But what exactly was the item the ghost blade gave you? He had mentioned that by giving that item, there was no longer a reason for them to fight. What did he give him? Chapter 146. Repayment. Part 2. But what exactly was the item the ghost blade gave you? The ghost blade had given it to Baek Saha, saying there was no longer a reason for them to fight. What did he give him? At Mok Jayangan's question, Baek Saha let out a soft sigh and answered, "Phew." It was the society leader's token. The society leader's token? Upon hearing this, Mok Jayangan furrowed his brows. Based on Baek Saha's words, he had thought that the ghost blade might not be related to the Heaven and Earth Society, but if that was the case, the story changed. If he gave you the society leader's token, does that mean the ghost blade is connected to the society leader? I don't know for certain either. What do you mean by not knowing for certain? It means there's no way to tell what kind of connection he has with the society leader or what instructions he received from the society leader. It was a somewhat ambiguous answer. At this, Mok Jayangan asked. Then did you deliver the token to the society leader as the ghost blade requested? Yes, I did. May I ask what the society leader said? He said nothing. What? Did he mean there was no reaction after delivering it? As he was puzzled, Baek Saha lightly placed his hand on Mok Jayangan's shoulder and said. The only thing the society leader said was this. What is it? He ordered me not to reveal anything I learned while fighting the ghost blade to anyone. Of course, that includes the token as well. Do you now understand why I told you not to let what you hear from me in this place leak out? It was all by the society leader's order. In the first place, the duel with the ghost blade was a humiliating incident for Baek Saha as well, so their interests aligned, and it had been well kept as a secret until now. Society leader. Mok Jayangan's gaze grew somewhat heavy. He had tried to learn the ghost blade's identity through Baek Saha, but instead, he only found out that there was a close connection between him and the Heaven and Earth Society's society leader. Chang Ryong, who had been listening to this conversation, inwardly felt relieved. It's unfortunate, but I should say it's fortunate for me. She had been worried that Mok Jayangan might leave this place if the connection between the ghost blade and the Heaven and Earth Society disappeared. However, coincidentally, as it turned out to be related to the society leader, the reason for him to stay here became even more clear. It could be said to be a fortunate turn of events for Chang Ryong. In the end, it seems that your purpose and mine align to some extent, you despicable being. It seems so. Mok Jayangan's gaze turned cold. The situation had become a bit more complicated. He had hoped for a more straightforward clue about the culprit, but he only found out that the society leader might also be involved in this matter. The society leader is a clue. He was related to the ghost blade, who might have killed his grandfather. Since it was an incident from 17 years ago, he couldn't determine a direct connection, but one thing was certain, the society leader knew about the ghost blade. That meant he needed a way to contact the society leader. However, the problem was that meeting the society leader was incomparably more difficult than meeting Baek Saha. He was the leader of the Heaven and Earth Society and one of the 6 heavens, known as the pinnacle of the current martial arts world. I need a way to make contact. No method came to mind at the moment. Baek Saha had the justification of the 3 society leader disciple tokens, but the society leader was different. There was no natural way to get close to him. While his mind was filled with those thoughts, Baek Saha spoke. Why aren't you answering? Pardon? Didn't I tell you that as a member of the association, you shouldn't reveal it either? Yes. Of course. At Mok Jayangan's answer, Baek Saha looked at him with suspicious eyes. He had told him despite it being the society leader's order because of the promise, but judging from Mok Jayangan's reaction, it seemed he had some connection too. the ghost blade in one way or another. At this, Bek Saha spoke as if advising him. Although I told you because it was a promise, it would be better for your well-being not to dig too deeply into matters regarding the ghost blade. Besides, he disappeared 17 years ago. Whether it's a good connection or a bad one, it's best to forget about it now. Disappeared? That was yet to be known. The mark left on his late grandfather's wound was related to the ghost blade. Anyway, in response to Bek Saha's advice, Mok Jayangan politely brought his hands together and replied, I will keep that in mind. I hope you do, even if it's just lip service. How could I give lip service to the advice you give me? Kakik. You're good with words. Thanks to you, my curiosity has been satisfied, and you have obtained what you wanted. I shall return to the Shadow Clan now. Mok Jayangan had no more business with Bek Saha. What? At his words, a glint appeared in Bek Saha's eyes. Although he had told him, going against the society leader's order to keep it a secret, it wasn't something that could be considered a proper repayment. Yet, he was just going to leave? You're quite a peculiar fellow. Pardon? Did you come all the way here just to satisfy that curiosity of yours? Ah, that's... You didn't come to seek my teachings. Kahahaha. What kind of fellow is this? Using the benefit of the society leader-disciple tokens just as a pretext to meet me. Bek Saha burst into laughter, holding his stomach. As the holder of the society leader-disciple tokens of the Corpse Blood Valley, Mok Jayangan had the privilege of receiving teachings from him. But he was saying he would leave without even receiving that benefit, so how impudent was that? It meant he had no intention of learning from the beginning. I've been caught. Mok Jayangan scratched his head, wondering what to do about this. While he was doing so, Bek Saha, who had been laughing for a while, stopped and said, You made me laugh for the first time in a long while. I apologize. What do you have to apologize for? But listen. Since you brought the 3 society leader-disciple tokens of the Corpse Blood Valley, I can't just let you go. What do you mean by not being able to let me go? Of course, I will pass on martial arts to you. Martial arts? Kakik. Yes. Then may I ask what you will teach me? At Mok Jayangan's question, Bek Saha stroked his beard and replied, I will teach you poison techniques. Poison techniques? It seems that even though you have become a poison master, you don't know how to use poison techniques at all. Who taught you about poisons? I just learned bits and pieces from physicians or pharmacists. At Mok Jayangan's words, Bek Saha snorted. What did this fellow take him for to say such a thing? Even if one devoted their entire life to refining poison techniques, it would be uncertain whether they could reach the level of a poison master. Yet, he claimed to have reached that level with shallow knowledge learned from physicians and pharmacists? Humph. Learned bits and pieces? Don't talk nonsense. Even if you don't believe it, it's the truth. Do you think I'm going to capture and eat the one who taught you poison if I find out? Well, that's not it. Then why aren't you revealing it? Do you have a reason to hide it? Phew. At his question, Mok Jayangan felt annoyed inwardly. If he didn't give an appropriate answer, it seemed Bek Saha would keep probing. So. I understand. There's no reason to hide this, so I'll tell you. The mentor who taught me about medicinal herbs and poisonous plants has already passed away. What? He passed away. He's deceased? Yes. Oh my. Bek Saha let out a small sigh. He was genuinely curious about who had turned Mok Jayangan into a poison master. But judging from Mok Jayangan's tone and the faint sense of loss in his eyes, it seemed it wasn't a lie. I suppose it's true. Ahem. I don't know who he was, but if he was skilled enough in poisons to turn you into a poison master without even passing on poison techniques, he must have been no ordinary person. Even the Four Heavens Tang clan or the Guyang clan. At that moment, a certain nickname flashed through Bek Saha's mind. Medicine Immortal He Yang, the Medicine Immortal? Until now, He had believed that only his Beck clan, the Four Heavens Tang clan, and the Guyong clan were the supreme masters of poison techniques in the Central Plains. But 17 years ago, the one who had inflicted a serious injury on the ghost blade with a poison scar. He had said it was medicine immortal He Yang. When one became proficient and reached the pinnacle in a particular field, they naturally became knowledgeable in the opposite nature as well. Wasn't Beck Saha himself also a master in pharmacology? Poison techniques might be like that for medicine immortal He Yang. Beck Saha stared intently at Mok Jiangun's face. But soon, he shook his head. Yes. That can't be. No matter how he thought about it, the connection between this fellow and medicine immortal He Yang was too far-fetched. Then what exactly was the identity of that person? But it seemed unlikely that this stubborn fellow would reveal it at the moment. Let's find out gradually. Hiding his inner thoughts, Beck Saha said. Kakik, anyway, if you learn poison techniques from me, you'll be able to fully utilize the poison within you. Fully utilize the poison? Yes. Do you want to learn properly? At his question, Mok Jiangun brought his hands together in a salute and said, How could I refuse your consideration? If you bestow your teachings upon me, I will do my best to learn. There was no reason to refuse. There was no harm in learning poison techniques. At that moment, Beck Saha suddenly asked Mok Jiangun a question. By the way, what was that thing you fed me earlier? Could it be a divine medicine? Are you referring to the heavenly earth pill? Ah, yes. I thought so. Beck Saha clicked his tongue, looking at Mok Jiangun. Divine medicines were no different from treasures to martial artists, even if it was to save his life. Yet, he had used it on him without any hesitation, even though he might have died. If he had really died, it would have been a wasted effort. It was truly difficult to discern what type of person this fellow was. I owe you a great debt. You don't need to think of it as a debt. No, it is a debt. Well, if you think that way, I can't help it. Then will you repay it? Of course. I have a temperament that can't stand being in debt. Is that so? Then how do you intend to repay it? As it was an equivalent exchange, I will give you a special divine medicine made by our clan. A divine medicine? Repaying a divine medicine with a divine medicine. It made sense. If you give it to me, I will gratefully accept it. However, there is a condition. You sure have a lot of conditions. It's not a bad condition at all. If you promise not to reveal anything about this divine medicine to others, I will give you 2 of them. 2? Yes. Isn't that good? At these words, Mok Jiangun didn't hide his puzzlement. He had only used 1 divine medicine, yet he was offering to give him 2 in exchange for not revealing it. Why would he refuse? It's not bad for me, but are you sure? Kakik. If it wasn't okay, would you not accept it? Of course not. Naturally. The divine medicine I will give you is called the Ascending Dragon Pill, 1, created by my father, who was also the founder of our clan, Lord Baekyu. In some ways, it's far superior to the Heavenly Earth Pill. Far superior? Yes. If the Heavenly Earth Pill grants 10 to a maximum of 15 years worth of internal energy, our clan's Ascending Dragon Pill, if absorbed efficiently, can grant up to 20 years worth of internal energy. At his words, a glint appeared in Mok Jiangun's eyes. If what Beck Saha said was true, it was a divine medicine far better than the Heavenly Earth Pill. I can definitely understand the reason for not revealing it. Yes. However, it's not unconditionally good. Why? In the case of the Ascending Dragon Pill, its side effects are much stronger than the Heavenly Earth Pill. After consuming 1 pill, the effects drastically decrease from the second pill onward. Kakik, don't be disappointed. Still, if I assist you with the Pushing Palace and Passing Acupoints, 2, technique, you can gain close to 10 years worth of internal energy even with the second pill. 10 years. If what he said was true, even with the assistance of an internal energy master in absorbing the pill, the efficiency would drop by almost half. Then, if one were to absorb the pill alone, the efficiency would be even lower, so he understood why Bek Saha said it wasn't unconditionally good. However, it won't be of any use to me anyway. For Mok Jiangun, who used the death chi, divine medicines held no meaning or effect. But if a situation like this arose, it would be useful, just like this time. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. Damn it. Jiang Nung A.K., the second disciple of the society leader who had barely dispelled the poison chi, couldn't hide his anger. What kind of disgrace was this? He hadn't expected to kneel down, unable to endure the Poison King's poison chi even for a moment. Fortunately, it seemed that Wai So-yen, the third disciple, was also circulating her energy due to the poison chi. But what was annoying was that she seemed to have dispelled the poison chi even before him. In terms of internal energy, she was far ahead of him. F*** King Wench. How was it that the gap between them kept widening? He was worried that she might reach a level that would be truly difficult to deal with. Perhaps he needed to take action before that happened. But there was something else that took priority. Is the Poison King Elder still inside? Jiang Nung A.K. asked Bek So-gang, the second son of Bek Saha. In response, Bek So-gang nodded and replied. Yes, he is. I need to have another conversation with him. You'll have to wait for now. Wait. What do you mean? My father is currently engaged in a conversation with the Shadow Clan Master's disciple. What? Jiang Nung A.K. furrowed his brows and looked at the entrance made of stone walls. That meant Mok Jiangun had endured that incredible poison chi and went inside. What was going on? No matter how proficient he was with poisons, how was he enduring the poison emitted by a master of poison techniques like the Poison King? He wasn't the only one puzzled by this. Mok Jiangun. Wai So-yen, who had dispelled the poison before him, was also unable to hide her surprise upon hearing that Mok Jiangun was inside the meditation room. His internal energy and martial arts level should be several ranks below theirs, so how was this possible? At that moment. Rumble. The tightly closed stone door opened, revealing someone's figure. Wai So-yen, who noticed the person emerging from the entrance, momentarily turned her head to the side in embarrassment. Why? It was because Poison King Bek Saha's clothes had almost entirely melted away, leaving him nearly naked. Father. Seeing Bek Saha like this, his second son, Bek So-gang, approached him with wide eyes and asked in a trembling voice. Are your legs all right? Kakik, can't you tell by looking? Bek So-gang couldn't contain his emotions upon seeing his father, Bek Saha, standing firmly on his two legs. Hadn't he been paralyzed from the waist down, unable to walk, as a side effect of not reaching the 8th level of the Wave Demon Poison scripture? Suddenly, he noticed a change in his father's appearance. Huh? Father. Could it be? Did you undergo a complete metamorphosis? Complete metamorphosis. At those words, Jiang Nung A.K. also stared at Bek Saha with widened eyes. His face, which looked as if he had rejuvenated by nearly 30 years, was completely different from before. Not only were his clothes melted, but it seemed he had truly undergone a complete metamorphosis. That meant he broke through his bottleneck? It signified the birth of a new master of the transformation realm within the Heaven and Earth Society. At that moment, Wai So-yen, who had been sneaking glances at the nearly naked Bek Saha, hurriedly brought her hands together and said, Congratulations on achieving a great accomplishment. See, congratulations on achieving a great accomplishment, Elder. Jiang Nung A.K., who had been too shocked to speak, also congratulated Poison King Bek Saha. His mind became extremely complicated. With this, he couldn't afford to lose Poison King Bek Saha's support even more. Not only was he already a master of poison techniques, but he had even reached the transformation realm on top of that. He needed to bring him to his side by any means necessary. However, Keek, I merely obtained a small achievement, but I'm grateful for your congratulations. How can that be considered a small achievement? Father, I sincerely congratulate you on achieving a great accomplishment. Thank you. But with my clothes like this, it's truly embarrassing. Ah. At Bek Saha's words, his second son, Bek Sogang, hurriedly took off his outer robe and handed it to his father. Bek Saha took the outer robe and quickly tied the sleeves around his waist to cover his important parts. Seeing him like this, Jang Nungake thought it was a good opportunity and spoke up. Elder. How can we just let this day pass? Instead of this, we should go outside and celebrate your great accomplishment. It's fine. Pardon? But I appreciate your congratulations on my achievement, but didn't we already conclude our business earlier? What do you mean by that? Didn't we make a promise earlier? You said you would support me if I could stand up. At Bek Saha's words, Jang Nungake, the second disciple of the society leader, was at a loss for words. He had tried not to miss this opportunity, thinking Bek Saha would be in a good mood after achieving a great accomplishment. But he hadn't expected him to draw the line with what happened earlier. But elder, a man's word is as good as gold. I don't go back on my word. Damn it. This stubborn old man. Jang Nungake was angry, but he couldn't express it. That was because Bek Saha's energy, which was already strong, had intensified to an incomparable level compared to before. Now, it was difficult to even gauge the difference between them. What should I do about this? Jang Nungake wasn't the only one troubled by Bek Saha's resolute attitude of drawing the line. The third disciple, Wai Soyun, was also in a dilemma. If they missed today, the opportunity to persuade him would become distant. Tap tap. At that moment, Poison King Bek Saha tapped the shoulder of his second son, Bek Sogang, and pointed to Mok Jyangan standing behind him with a nod, saying, "From today onward, this child is my formal disciple and a new member of our clan. Treat him like your own younger brother." Chapter 147. Repayment. Part 3. From today onward, this child is my formal disciple and a new member of our clan. Treat him like your own younger brother. Everyone was unable to hide their bewilderment at Poison King Bek Saha's words. Formal disciple? In the case of his second son, Bek Sogang, he had never imagined his father, Bek Saha, would make such a statement. That was because the Bek clan had always valued the bloodline of the family for generations and never accepted outsiders as disciples. His father, Bek Saha, had also maintained that tradition, so he hadn't expected him to suddenly accept an outsider as a disciple. What exactly happened inside? He had been continuously wondering what had occurred inside that led his father, Bek Saha, to undergo a complete metamorphosis. It was unlikely for his father to show such favor to this child without something happening. Could it be that he had given him a clue to enlightenment? At that moment, Bek Saha spoke. "Why aren't you answering?" "Ah, I understand. I will do as you say." In the Bek clan, the orders of the clan head were absolute. If clan head Bek Saha had decided so, then that was how it would be. At that point, Mok Jyangan intervened. "Disciple, you say? Kakik, why are you so surprised? Since you'll be receiving my teachings, you're now my disciple." At his words, Mok Jyangan replied with a troubled expression. "Receiving teachings is just in exchange for the 3 society leader disciple tokens." "Oh, what should I do about this?" "Pardon? For a youngster like you who has a deep understanding of poisons, I need to pass on my poison scripture, the Wave Demon Poison Scripture, but that can't be done for outsiders." "What? Wave Demon Poison Scripture? Father?" At those words, his second son, Bek Sogang, asked in surprise. That was because the Wave Demon Poison Scripture wasn't an ordinary martial art or poison technique of the Bek clan, but a secret scripture. The Wave Demon Poison Scripture was a transcendent poison technique that could only be learned by those of the main family's bloodline who were qualified to become the clan head, so it was bewildering to hear that he would pass it on. Even if it's a privilege of the society leader disciple tokens, that's... Didn't I say I would accept him as a formal disciple? Are you questioning the order of this clan head? And no, that's not it. Baek So-gang waved his hands in surprise. The clan head and his father, Poison King Baek Saha, never went back on his decisions once he made them. Especially if he had decided something as an order from the clan head, anyone who tried to object would face severe consequences. Oh my! Mok Jae-yeon clicked his tongue inwardly at Baek Saha's decision. He had thought the level of repayment was greater than expected when Baek Saha mentioned repaying the debt, but he hadn't expected this ulterior motive. At this, Mok Jae-yeon brought his hands together in a salute and said, "Elder, I am grateful for your consideration, but I am a disciple of the Shadow Clan Master. How can I, when I already have a master? Is there a rule stating one can't have two masters?" There was no such rule. However, this wasn't a matter of rules. Even if there's no such rule, this is about the Shadow Clan Master. I will personally go to the Shadow Clan Master and seek his understanding, so don't worry about that. It seemed he was determined to accept him as a disciple no matter what he said. At this, Mok Jae-yeon was inwardly annoyed, but since he had no proper reason to refuse, he refrained from further objections. However, at some point, he noticed that the gazes of the society leader's second disciple, Jang Nun-ak, and the third disciple, Wai So-yeon, were directed at him rather than Poison King Baek Saha. Seeing their peculiar looks, Mok Jae-yeon licked his lips. So that's what it was. He seemed to understand the reason why Baek Saha publicly declared him as his disciple in front of him. It was to divert the attention of those who had been pestering him for support away from himself. It was a kind of ploy. Due to Baek Saha's declaration, regardless of his own will, Mok Jae-yeon had become a joint disciple of the Poison King, one of the 5 kings, and the Shadow Clan Master. As a result, he had become an even more enticing prey for those seeking a successor. It took nearly an hour of torment before Mok Jae-yeon could leave the Baek clan's estate with his guard, Suk-young. Poison King Baek Saha was not only stubborn but also had a very troublesome personality. He made Mok Jae-yeon participate in his grandson's first birthday celebration and personally introduced him to the Baek clan's blood relatives, making him acquainted with them one by one. Mok Jae-yeon found this very annoying but played along without showing it. The reason was that Baek Saha was one of the 5 kings, a high-ranking executive. For now, the Poison King is the way to go. Considering Baek Saha's position, there was a high possibility of contact with the society leader. That was why, even when he said he would accept him as a disciple, despite finding it troublesome, Mok Jae-yeon had reluctantly agreed. It remained to be seen how this would play out, but making contact with the society leader was currently Mok Jae-yeon's top priority. As they moved away from the Baek clan's estate, Chong Ryong's voice echoed in his ears. In the end, it seems your judgment was correct. Judgment? Yes. Someone like the Poison King is the best ally. Well, I don't know. He seems like an annoying old man to me. Didn't you gain the opportunity to learn the Wave Demon Poison Scripture, known as the Supreme Poison Technique, thanks to helping that annoying old man? Well, that's true. In front of the Baek clan's blood relatives, Poison King Baek Saha had publicly declared Mok Jae-yeon as his formal disciple and immediately took him to the clan head's hall to show him the verses of the Wave Demon Poison Scripture. Despite accepting him as a disciple, Mok Jae-yeon had shown no particular reaction, so Baek Saha wanted to demonstrate how extraordinary the Baek clan's poison scripture, the Wave Demon Poison Scripture, was. Thanks to that, Mok Jae-yeon had memorized all the verses of the Wave Demon Poison Scripture just by glancing at them once. Of course, Poison King Baek Saha was unaware of this fact. There's no martial art as unconventional as poison techniques. Moreover, it can be considered the best when dealing with multiple opponents. Multiple opponents? I suppose so. Anyway, it's not bad. Why are you doing that? Chong Ryong asked Mok Jae-yeon, stopping mid-sentence. The reason was that Mok Jae-yeon, who had been walking, stopped and stared at something. His guard, Suk-young, also asked in puzzlement. Young master. Why are you doing that? There's a guest waiting for you. Pardon? As he asked in return, someone walked out from the right corner. The moment he saw that person, Seok-young's eyes widened. Woo Ho-rang, Grand Clan leader? He was none other than Woo Ho-rang, the society leader disciple of Bright Blade King Sun Yun and the Grandmaster of the Jeogwil clan. He was also known as the right-hand man and the most trusted subordinate of Wai So-yun, the society leader's third disciple, and was one of the 5 tigers, considered the top disciples within the Heaven and Earth Society. Woo Ho-rang stared at Mok Jae-yun with an expressionless gaze and opened his mouth. Despite your appearance, your perception is excellent. That's because you didn't particularly hide your energy. Humph. Woo Ho-rang snorted. As Mok Jae-yun said, he hadn't hidden his energy from the beginning. Unless it was a special case, he considered the act of hiding oneself to be something only cowards and rats would do. Woo Ho-rang lightly scanned Mok Jae-yun from top to bottom. What a strange person. How did he do it? The energy emanating from Mok Jae-yun was merely at the level of the early peak stage. With such martial prowess, he absolutely couldn't have defeated his junior brother, Yip Wai-seon, yet it was said that he had won against him. And according to his lord, Wai So-yun, this fellow's true martial prowess might have reached the transcendent realm. If what she said was true, it meant this fellow had mastered a mysterious technique that could almost perfectly conceal his martial prowess. He's mastered a troublesome technique. But it was of no concern to him. Regardless of what technique he had mastered, he just needed to cut him down. Woo Ho-rang said to Mok Jae-yun. Do you know why I was waiting for you? Who knows? They say you're a clever fellow, but you can't even guess? I have no way of knowing whether it's a personal matter or because of an order. From your lord. What? You seem to be looking at me with displeasure, so it doesn't seem like you're waiting for me just because of an order from your lord. At Mok Jae-yun's words, Woo Ho-rang chuckled. Indeed, he wasn't entirely devoid of a cunning side, as his lord had said. That made him even more displeased. You're right. I don't particularly like you. Starting from the fact that you're a hostage from the righteous faction, there are many reasons. Many reasons? Yes. Many reasons. Then it's just that you don't like me. I won't deny it. I see. I don't think I can do anything about those feelings, so may I ask what business you have with me? The young lady told me to bring you to her. Me? Yes. It's an order from the young lady, so you don't have the right to refuse, do you? At Woo Ho-rang's words, Mok Jae-yun laughed inwardly. It was indeed as he had expected. Even though she hadn't achieved her goal at the Baek clan's estate, the way she had retreated while giving him a meaningful look was in anticipation of this moment. Of course. Then should I just follow you? Yes. But listen. Yes. Before that, shouldn't we settle our score? Settle our score? Roar. As soon as he finished speaking, Woo Ho-rang released a powerful aura. The aura was so fierce that Seok-young unknowingly took a step back. Mok Jae-yun opened his mouth with narrowed eyes. That seems to go against your lord's wishes. Are you okay with that? This is purely a matter between you and me. A matter between you and me? You showed off your martial prowess against my junior brother, Yip Wai-seon, didn't you? Ah, I see. So that's what this is about. Thanks to you, my junior brother is now imprisoned in a detention cell. Of course, it's partly his own mistake, but how can I just let it slide when he's facing execution? At his words, Mok Jae-yun chuckled inwardly. Was it really just about his junior brother? No matter how he looked at it, it didn't seem to be solely about that. It seemed to stem from a more personal sentiment. The matter regarding his junior brother was merely a pretext. So, Mok Jae-yun smiled and spoke with a troubled expression. Ah. I see. But you see, do you know why the young lady is summoning me? I know. Of course he knew. As Wai So-yun's trusted subordinate, he knew her intentions better than anyone else. If it were any other time, he would have suppressed his own feelings and done his best as a subordinate to fulfill her wishes. But strangely, the thought that he shouldn't let this fellow get close to the young lady took precedence. Even if he had to go against his emotions and make a mistake. Xing. Wu Horeng drew his unique weapon, the 9 Harmony Blade, and said, "You received a token from the young lady, didn't you?" "Yes. But I also have a token." "Ah, is that so? Let's wager our tokens and duel. If you win, I will give you the token I received from my lord. But if you lose, I will take that token from you." This was Wu Horeng's true objective. To retrieve Wei Soyun's token from Mok Jiangyun. At his words, Mok Jiangyun suddenly burst into laughter. "Haha. You. Did you just laugh?" "Yes. I laughed." Roar. At that moment, a strong murderous intent surged from Wu Horeng. How dare a mere youngster ridicule him? As he was doing so, Mok Jiangyun lightly waved his hand and said, "Ah. If I offended you, I apologize." I couldn't help but laugh because I could see through your true intentions. True intentions? Yes. What nonsense are you spouting? How can you? It seems you're not doing what your lord wants, but rather, you're desperate to make your lord yours. Am I wrong? For a moment, Wu Horeng flinched. Seeing his reaction, the corners of Mok Jiangyun's lips curled up. It seemed his prediction was correct. Swish. Then, Wu Horeng's blade swiftly flew towards Mok Jiangyun's neck, stopping at his skin. However, whether it was due to the sharp blade or not, the skin was cut, and blood flowed down. "Are you trying to mock me?" At Wu Horeng's words, which revealed murderous intent in a low tone, Mok Jiangyun shrugged his shoulders. "How could I? But I merely stated the truth. But if you're getting so agitated, I can't help but be more certain. You. Hack." At that moment, Mok Jiangyun grabbed the blade of Wu Horeng's 9 Harmony Blade. At this, Wu Horeng tried to shake it off. However, surprisingly, even though he drew out his internal energy to nearly 6-star level, the blade didn't budge at all. This bastard's internal energy? It had far surpassed his expectations. It seemed that his lord Wei Soyun's words about him possibly reaching the transcendent realm were indeed true. As he was astonished, Mok Jiangyun said with a smile, "Well, I can understand. Even if you want the person you admire to do well, if she truly becomes the successor, your relationship will become more fixed and distant. So, you wouldn't be fixated on her becoming the successor. That's why you tried to take the young lady's token from me, using your junior brother as a pretext." At Mok Jiangyun's words, Wu Horeng's expression completely stiffened. Even though they hadn't engaged in a long conversation, he had thoroughly seen through his true intentions. What kind of fellow was this? As he was thinking that. "But you see. Do you think you can take it from me?" Creak, creak, creak. The blade of the 9 Harmony Blade, gripped in Mok Jiangyun's hand, gradually bent.